You got a question, I got an answer for you. Give us a call, 1-800-529-5465. Let's try Jacob one more time in McKinney, Texas. Jacob.
Hey, Brad, can you hear me?
Yeah, I do hear you. What's going on?
Do you know the minute? What does it mean? What does a deferred disposition mean?
What does a deferred disposition?
Yes.
A disposition is the results of a criminal case. So deferred enforced departure, is that what you're asking? That would be from immigration. What are you asking, in the context of immigration or a criminal case?
It's a criminal case.
Okay. Where in Texas, I don't know what all their different lingo is in Texas. A disposition is a letter you get from the court that says this is what you were charged with, this is what the final result of this case is. Deferred, what does that mean in Texas? I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, all right. So it's like it's a class C misdemeanor.
Okay.
Like it was dismissed.
Okay.
A long time ago.
Uh-huh.
I just remembered because I was watching your show yesterday. The lady Rose, she was from Austin, Texas. She said she got denied for theft. Right. And yeah, it's similar, like something like that. But mine was dismissed.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you plead guilty to something and do a sentence, and then you went back and they threw the case out, or did they say to you? Did they say to you, either don't just do this sentence, you're not going to plead guilty to anything, and then we're going to dismiss the case? Well, because it could have went either way. Because if it's a situation where you pled guilty to something and they said do community service, pay a fine, and then 1 year later you come back and then they say, okay, you did everything we told you to do, now we're going to dismiss it, that is a rehabilitation statute. That is not a diversionary statute. So there's two different schemes of having your case dismissed, okay? And most of these schemes appear in most state penal codes. Not all, some states only do one or the other, okay? But there's two ways in which your case potentially gets dismissed in Texas. Let's go through the two different ways and how it affects your immigration case. If you go into a diversionary program, and these are things you have to ask your criminal defense attorney. You ask your criminal defense attorney, when I'm getting this final disposition, is this a diversionary program or is this a rehabilitation program? A diversionary program is something where you do not plead guilty to anything. They say, we will not have you come into court. You will not say you did anything wrong. What we want you to do is do this probation, do this community service, they give you a sentence without making you say that you did anything wrong, that you pled guilty to anything. You do that sentence, the community service, the probation, you pay the fine, whatever it is, and then you go back to the judge and you say, I did what you told me to do. Sometimes it's go to drug rehabilitation or take an Alcoholics Anonymous class or whatever it is. You go back to the judge, you say, Judge, I did what you told me to do. And then the judge will dismiss the case. That is a diversionary program. That is an outright dismissal for immigration purposes, because a crime, a definition of a crime for immigration, for U.S. immigration, the definition of a crime is you plead guilty to something and you have a sentence imposed. That is the definition of a crime. Now, what it sounds like to me that happened to you is you did not do a diversionary program, you did a rehabilitation program. A rehabilitation program is something where you plead guilty to a minor offense. The judge says, go do XYZ is your sentence, probation, community service, pay the fine, same deal. When you're done, you can make an application to me and I will expunge your case. Now, on the state level, you don't have a criminal case because it was expunged by the judge. But on an immigration level, that's a crime. And the reason it's a crime is because you pled guilty to something and a sentence was imposed no matter what the judge decided to do after the fact. The only time you can get around that, you pled guilty, sentence imposed, and now a judge is taking it back, is not an expungement, but it's as a vacator. And the reason why you can take it back as a vacator is when you vacate a conviction, what a judge is saying is, this conviction was constitutionally illegal. So therefore, it's not a conviction. So to me, not knowing or looking at your paperwork and just reading between the lines, it sounds like you did a rehabilitation statute. So that would constitute a conviction for immigration purposes. But I would need to see the actual disposition.
I think right. It says it's already dismissed on the grounds that the defendant presented evidence of successful computation of the terms of the.
Okay, so that is a rehabilitation statute. You pled guilty. A sentence was imposed. You went back to the judge and you said, "Judge, I did what you told me to do." And then he said, "Now the case is dismissed." That sounds like what it is to me without seeing the actual statute that you pled guilty to. So hold on one second. Thanks for watching. For more Bradshaw Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.